Thank you, everyone, for being here this afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Pamela Castro with the Colorado Springs Police Department. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Police Department. Just like yesterday, I wanted to start out touching base on some information that we have already shared, make sure everybody has that information. Hopefully all of you have seen that we sent out a news release earlier today with some updated information about the victims in this case. As of noon today, we released that we have 5 deceased community members. That has not changed since yesterday. We have 17 community members who are injured because of a gunshot wound. We have 1 community member who is injured but not because of a gunshot wound. And we have 1 community member who was a victim with no visible injuries. This final area is the area that we expect numbers to change. And that's why we have reached out to the community, to all of our media partners, to get out there that we know there were more people at the club and we really want to speak to them. They could be victims of a crime, and so we are looking to talk to them and identify them if at all possible. The FBI has been a great partner through this, and they have set up a tip line for us. Anybody with information, if they were there, they have video, they were driving by, they might know information about the suspect, anything at all, no matter how small or insignificant they believe it might be, could we please call and let us know about that? That phone number is 1-800-CALL-FBI, and they have dedicated people who are there to talk to anybody who calls in. Today, we are going to have a couple of speakers. I want to go through the order of the speakers for you. Again, if the conclusion of this, if there's any spelling of names that you need, we will be happy to get that to you. The first speaker today will be Colorado Springs Police Department Chief Adrian Vasquez. The second speaker will be Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers. The third speaker will be Colorado 4th Judicial District Attorney Michael Allen. And our final speaker will be United States Attorney Cole Finnegan. I also want to acknowledge our law enforcement, fire, and medical partners who are present today and have been supporting us and our community from the beginning. They are FBI Acting Special Agent in Charge Matt Fodor, ATF Denver Field Division Special Agent in Charge David S. Booth, Colorado Springs Fire Department Chief Randy Royal, and Penrose Hospital CEO Patrick Sharp. At the conclusion of the designated speakers, there will be a chance to ask questions. The questions will should be focused on what we are sharing today or what we have previously shared. Please understand that this is an ongoing criminal investigation, and out of respect for the judicial process, there are simply things that we just can't share information on. First up to speak will be Colorado Springs Police Department Chief Adrian Vasquez.
Thank you, everybody, for being here to cover this incredibly important event, just a horrific and sad and tragic event. Today, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the victims in this incident. You know, too often society loses track of the victims of these sad and tragic events in all the talk about the suspect. We strive to give the victims the dignity and respect that they deserve, as well as shine the light of public attention on the victims. Therefore, we are identifying them now. Please know that while all of the victims' families have been notified, they are suffering a horrific loss. So, I ask everyone who is listening to keep them in your thoughts and show them the care and heartfelt compassion that they deserve. None of the families want to do media interviews at this time, and I ask everyone to respect their request. We respect all of our community members, including our LGBTQ community. Therefore, we will be identifying the victims by how they identified themselves and how their families have loved and identified them. The first person I'll identify is Kelly Loving. Kelly's pronouns are she, her. Daniel Aston. Daniel's pronouns are he, him. Derek Rump. Derek's pronouns are he, him. Ashley Paugh, and that's P-A-U-G-H. Ashley's pronouns are she, her. Raymond Green Vance. Raymond's pronouns are he, him. I wanted to ensure that every victim, family member, and friends of victims, and all of our community members know that our officers and detectives will continue to be diligent and thorough in our work to hold the suspects accountable for these horrendous acts. I also want to reiterate that the Colorado Springs Police Department and that I am standing beside you as we move through and come to a conclusion in the investigation and seek justice for all of our victims. As I end, I ask that everyone in our community and around the world honor each victim lived. I want to take a moment of silence to honor those community members who lost a loved one. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. I also want to identify the two heroes who intervened inside of Club Q. Their exact actions are part of the investigation, so we can't discuss the specifics out of respect for the judicial process, but with their permission, we want to acknowledge their heroic actions. They are Thomas James and Richard Fierro. Again, thank you for being here and covering this incredibly important event. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mayor John Suthers.
Thank you, Chief, and good afternoon. Thank you for being here. As Mayor of Colorado Springs, and frankly, on behalf of all the citizens of Colorado Springs, I want to again express our heartfelt condolences and unwavering support to the victims, their families, the LGBTQ plus community, and everyone affected by this tragedy. I had the opportunity before I came here today to talk to Richard Fierro, identified as one of the two heroes that subdued the suspect in this case, and in my opinion, I think the opinion of everyone involved, saved a lot of lives. I won't talk about, the nature of what he told me about the incident. I will just simply talk about, I have never encountered a person who had engaged in such heroic actions that was so humble about it. He simply said to me, I was trying to protect my family. I would also like to thank our community, the whole Colorado Springs community and the whole Pikes Peak region for the outpouring of support they've shown. I can't tell you how many people have reached out from the city, our region, and frankly, from across the country, expressing their love and support for Colorado Springs and the Club Q community. And speaking of the Club Q community, we are joined here today by two co-owners of the club, Matthew Haynes and Nick Gizeka. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the support you've shown and the cooperation you've shown in making sure that you help us reach out to the community and help us serve the ends of justice in this case. A lot of people are wanting to know how they can help. We know that the victims and their families need our immediate and long-term support. And I want to tell you about the Colorado Healing Fund. That's a fund that's been in existence for some time. Actually, it was utilized during the Boulder tragedy where several people were killed in Boulder some time ago. It's set up to provide a secure way to donate to victims and family members in incidents such as this, and they are ready and able, and they've already talked about appropriating money existing in the fund to the Club Q shooting victims. And what I want to emphasize to the public is that if you choose to donate through the Colorado Healing Fund at coloradohealingfund.com, you can be absolutely assured your donations are going to the right place. Now, for people needing support during this emotional time, the Colorado Springs Police Department is hosting a community resource expo to provide our community members with the help they need in navigating the variety of emotions they may be experiencing surrounding this event. That expo is being held at the University of Colorado Springs, Kevin O'Neill Cybersecurity and Research Center at 36050 North Nevada Avenue. It's open today until 7 p.m. and Tuesday and Wednesday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. The expo is providing mental health resources, spiritual support, emotional support, animal support, child care, emergency financial resources, LGBTQ plus support, meals, and other services. Basically, whatever any person adversely impacted by this incident, whatever their needs are, they can help in supporting their needs. The event is designed to be an inclusive and safe space for all community members to gather, grieve, and obtain the support they need to cope during this difficult time. If you need this, I'm speaking to the public, please take advantage of this resource. You can find details about both the Colorado Healing Fund and the Community Resource Expo, along with other resources at coloradosprings.gov/ClubQ. I'll repeat that, coloradosprings.gov/ClubQ. Again, on behalf of the City of Colorado Springs, I want to thank everyone for the outpouring of support. We all want to ensure that our community is not defined by this tragedy, but by our response to it. Thank you very much. Now I'll introduce Michael Allen, the District Attorney of the 4th Judicial District.
Good afternoon, everyone, and again, thank you all for being here. The devastation this violent act has had in our community cannot be measured, but we do know that we will respond to it in a strong way, that we will hold people accountable as we identify what charges should be filed in this case. It's imperative to note that the investigation continues and will likely last for some time. It's very common in homicide cases that the investigation continues clear up to and sometimes even during a trial in front of a jury, and that will likely be the case here. There have been reports in the media and in the public that charges have been filed. That is not true. Any case like this, an arrest warrant will be written up that is supported by a probable cause affidavit, and that will be submitted to a judge for approval of the arrest of a suspect. That has occurred here in this case. Any charges that are associated with an arrest warrant are only preliminary charges. It's also very customary, and it is the case here, that the arrest warrant and accompanying PC affidavit is sealed. That is to protect the investigation, to make sure that we have a strong investigation, that we have the ability to proceed forward with a strong prosecution. At some point in the coming days, that seal will be lifted and the arrest warrant and PC affidavit will be available to the public and to the media. Once the case is transferred to us for formal charging, we will review the evidence and then determine final charges. It is also very customary that final charges may be different than what is in the arrest affidavit. Typically, there will be more charges in a case like this when we do formal charging than what is actually listed in the arrest affidavit. So don't be surprised when you see a different list of charges when we finally file formal charges with the court. Once the suspect is released from the hospital, we will have a first appearance scheduled with the court. That should happen in the next couple of days, I would guess, although that is still to be determined by his care providers at the hospital. That appearance will be by video, so he will be in the jail and be appearing by video. We will advise the suspect at that time of the arrest charges and his bond status. He is being held without bond, so he will not have the opportunity to be bonded out. Within a few days of that first appearance is when we will return to the courtroom and file the formal charges with the court. That'll again be another bond advisement by the court, as well as potential punishments that the suspect will be facing as it relates to the charges that we file from the DA's office. It's important to note that we are not going to try this case in the media. We will only share information that we can share, and that is not to cause frustration in the community or deprive the media of information that the public absolutely wants. It is to protect that prosecution effort. We have an interest in making sure that any conviction we achieve in a case like this can withstand the appeal process. So we'll be very careful about the information that we share, at least as it relates to the DA's office. But that obligation that we have ethically extends to the investigation team as well. So oftentimes when you ask questions of them and they defer and say that they can't answer it, or because it's they're trying to protect the investigation, that's because my obligation of being tight with the information extends to the investigation team as well. So don't hold that against them. You can hold that against me. At this point, I would turn it over to U.S. Attorney Cole Finnegan. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the United States Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice, we want to express our deepest sympathies and condolences to the victims and to their families and to all those who were part of the awful incidents roughly 36 hours ago at Club Q. We are committed to working with District Attorney Michael Allen, Mayor John Suthers, Chief Vasquez, local law enforcement, and our federal partners to bring justice to the people who suffered in this instance, and to bring justice to those people who are all involved. This is an awful moment, and we pledge on behalf of our office and the Department of Justice that we will work as hard as we can to find justice in this instance. Thank you.
Hopefully I can cut off a couple of questions with these answers. So a couple of things moving forward for everybody to be aware of. As you've heard multiple times, this is still an ongoing investigation. We expect to be at the scene for the forthcoming days. It's not going to be over quickly. It is going to be done thoroughly and appropriately. We'll continue to partner with our federal partners throughout this process. Currently, people who have vehicles in the parking lot will start receiving phone calls from our detectives to release those vehicles to the registered owners. If those vehicles belongs to victims, then we will use our victim advocacy unit and detectives to work with those families. If somebody is the registered owner of a vehicle, they know that they left there and they are not contacted, or they had loaned that vehicle to somebody else, you can call us at the Colorado Springs Police Department's non-emergency line, which is 719-444-7000, and a detective will touch base with you to make sure we get that car returned to that registered owner. Additionally, at the conclusion of this conference, we will be releasing pictures of the victims that were provided by the family. These are the pictures that the family would like to be released so that everybody remembers them as they remember them. That will be done through our social media accounts, so you'll be able to get the high quality pictures there. That is all of the information we have to share at this point in time. I'll open it up to questions, and then we'll pick the most appropriate person. Just be patient. There's a lot of people here. And to make sure that everybody who is watching knows what the question is asked, I will go ahead and repeat it, or if one of the other individuals comes up to answer it, we will repeat it before we provide that answer. So we'll start this way. Sir? Yes, sir. So the question was about prior interactions with police and our red flag law. I will let Mr. Allen, our district attorney, answer that.
Thank you for that question. This is going to be a very unsatisfying answer as it relates specifically to part of your question. The red flag question is something that I think none of us up here are in a position to answer. But as it relates to the first part of your question, I want to talk about this in a way that hopefully makes sense to everybody. Colorado has very restrictive sealing laws. What that means is that if a case is filed in a courtroom in the state of Colorado and it is dismissed for any reason, whether that is because the prosecution dismisses it or the court dismisses it, it is automatically sealed. That is a change in the law that occurred back in 2019, so only 3 years ago. That same statute requires us to give very specific answers to questions about cases that may or may not be under a seal order under the scenario that I just gave you. That statute requires us to say in response to questions about it that no such record exists. So when you ask questions about specific prior instances, that will be our specific answer, but I want to give you a reason why that's the answer that we're giving. I acknowledge that it is very unsatisfying at this point. Hopefully at some point in the near future we can share more about that, but at this stage that's the best we can give you, and that's going to be the same answer for everybody up here. It's really the design behind that is to protect persons that have been accused of crime and been charged, and then the case is dismissed. The idea behind it is that that person shouldn't have to carry that charge around with them for the rest of their lives if there's no way to convict them of that charge. That's the design behind it. I know that's an unsatisfying answer, but that's the status of the law as it exists right now. If it changes to that specific thing that you're asking about, I'll be passing that information out. So the mayor just brought up a good point, and it relates to the red flag law. The DA's office doesn't play a part in the red flag law. That would be up to a law enforcement agency. That's why I say nobody in this group can really answer that specific question. It has to be initiated by law enforcement or a member of the public, not by the DA's office.
Sir?
As of October, the El Paso sheriffs had never filed for an extreme risk protection order since the law has been passed, and Colorado Springs PD has filed 2. My question is for Mayor Southers and Chief Vasquez. Mayor Southers, would you like to see local law enforcement utilize that law to try to prevent future tragedies? And Chief Vasquez, does this tragedy, given the previous interaction that El Paso sheriffs had with the suspected shooter, change your perspectives on her post?
So the question was regarding to the red flag law and the police department, not related to this investigation, but previously had used that red flag law, and then asking the mayor for his comment regarding the potentiality of using that law. Is that a fair brief?
Sure.
Okay.
My view of the red flag law is that it was passed by the legislature. It's the law in Colorado, and law enforcement agencies in appropriate circumstances should take advantage of it and utilize the law. That's my view of it. I don't run a law enforcement agency, but that's would be my advice to law enforcement agencies. I would caution against an assumption that the circumstance of this case would lead to application of the red flag law. We don't know that. I would caution any conclusion either way or not. As the district attorney indicated, hopefully there'll be a time when there can be a specific discussion about any prior interaction with the with law enforcement, and I think those circumstances would cause one to be able to make commentary about potential application of the red flag law, but I think it's premature to do so now.
So you question whether somebody calling a bomb threat and holding themselves up in a house and having a standoff with police would prompt extreme risk protection in those cases?
You're assuming that there's credible evidence of all that, as opposed to someone reporting it and that the prosecutor had evidence of that, and I would not make assumptions of that nature.